Welcome to the Vegan Pulse. I am your host, Nancy Arenas. Today, my guest is Seth Tibbott. Seth is Tofurky's founder, chairman, and CEO of 35 years. He was an idealistic hippie with no business acumen, living in a treehouse when he conceived the idea of bringing healthy, eco-friendly, tasty protein to the world. Seth is also a newly published author with his book, In Search of Wild Tofurky. He wants to share what he realized was a rare, teachable business story. Stick around. I'm going to introduce him to you. Hi, Seth. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm so honored that you are on the show and taking part of the Vegan Pulse. And the first question, I have many questions to ask you, but the first one is, let's just hear about your journey into veganism.
Yeah, sure. So I was not raised vegan. I was raised in Maryland, and I was, kind of meat and potatoes upbringing, and went to college in Ohio, where I had my first exposure to a vegetarian meal of lentils, rice, and onions from, I think it was from the Diet for a Small Planet cookbook, because I had read that book and it made a lot of sense to me. I was a naturalist kind of guy. I like nature. And she was pointing out, Frances Moore LePay was pointing out that animals are a very inefficient way of creating protein, and they have a terrible environmental footprint. You take all these lovely grains and you put them into an animal, and you get, like, for 16 pounds of grain, you get like a little bit, maybe a half a pound or a pound of protein. I was like, that's a waste of land. And you could see in Ohio the encroachment on the natural forest. Ohio used to be all forest. It was like a squirrel could go from Pennsylvania to Indiana without touching ground. But there were so many farms and factory farms around there. So I became a vegetarian kind of overnight after that lovely meal. But I wasn't a great vegetarian. This is 1972, and there wasn't a lot of information on how to eat a healthy vegetarian diet. So I was eating like vanilla wafers, cookies, and chips. I wasn't eating meat, but I wasn't eating great either. And so then I found this place called The Farm in Tennessee, which was a spiritual community of 1,200 hippies living a pure vegetarian diet, which today we would call vegan.
Right.
And I started eating soybeans there, and I was making soybean burgers. They had a cookbook and everything. And in that cookbook, they also talked about tempeh. And I was like, well, what is tempeh? And I got a job working in Tennessee near the farm one summer in 1977. And I went to the farm and I found tempeh, and I brought back some spores, and I made tempeh in my little tent that I was living in. And whoa, I was like, this is not only a good tasting food, but it's very nutritious and great protein too. Because, my mom was always bugging me. She was like, oh, you're going to be a vegetarian. Where are you going to get your protein? You're going to starve and all that. And I was like, no, Mom, I'm eating soybeans. I'm going to be fine. So that was kind of my journey into tempeh, which then became my North Star for, the next, it still is, I guess, in a lot of ways, although Tofurky is what we're named for more. But I didn't really become, fully vegan until 2011, after visiting Farm Sanctuary up in Watkins Glen, New York. And that was just like a pivotal moment. And, I saw these animals. I laid down, and the pigs, and there with the pigs. And I was like, how could you take, a sentient being like this and destroy it for food? This is a crazy thing. I can't. I was very close to vegan. I would go back and forth between vegan and vegetarian. But after being at the farm, vegan, been vegan ever since. So that's my story.
Wow. And myself, I'm a 70s flower child hippie. And I know that some of your descriptions describes you as a hippie back then as well.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
did
said
have hippie characteristics. Yeah.
you were a naturalist and you said you were living in a tent. And then I read somewhere that when you started, trying to go into the beginning of Tofurky, which is you're the founder of, and thank you. A lot of vegans and vegetarians thank you for being out there, being the first to be innovative and creative and give us protein
Yes,
that
sir.
wasn't derived from animals. So we're surely appreciative of that. But that you were, when you first started, you were living in a treehouse.
Yeah. Well, I first started the company in 1980, and that was in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, where I had a local co-op and I was making tempeh in the co-op at night. And I was only making like 100 pounds a night, and not very much, very small, and then delivering it around to stores in Portland. I got a little bigger and needed to find a new place to make the tempeh. So I found an old abandoned schoolhouse in Hewsum, Washington, which is about an hour east of Portland in the mountains. And I had read that, the mountains is the place to make the best tempeh. Tempeh is from Indonesia, and the best tempeh comes from the mountains where the air is pure and the water's pure. So I was like, that's where I want to live anyways. So I moved up there. I was making, very little money. For the first 9 years in business, I lived on $300 a month. And so I didn't have enough money to really rent much of a house. And so I went to a friend and said, hey, how about if I rent these 4 trees from you? And she said, yeah, that'll work. I'll charge you $25 a month in rent for these trees. And you can build a tree house and you can live there as long as you need to. And then after you leave, the tree house becomes part of her property. So that was a great deal. And treehouse is still up there, by the way. It's more of a squirrel condo now, but it's still in the tree. And I lived there for 7 years until 1990, when I met my wife, who, like a good woman, will ground you, and took me down to the ground. And she had a house in Trout Lake, which is nearby. So I moved up there, and I've been in Trout Lake ever since, although we moved to a newer place now. So, but yeah, I lived in a treehouse for a long time, and that was great years. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was having a lot of fun. I'd have parties in the treehouse, and we had a little frisbee golf course near the tree, and it was just a great place up there with the birds. I had a flying squirrel that would come land on the treehouse every night around 2 a.m. and he'd wake me up and he'd poke his head in the window and just like checking on me, are you all right? And I was going, yeah, I'm doing good.
One of the things that is very commendable, that I thought was very commendable of you, was that when you started, you weren't making a lot of money. You were starting Tofurky and you were selling your product. You weren't making a lot of money. And, most people will just give up and just go somewhere else and do something else, or choose something that makes more money. But you stayed with it. And I think that's very commendable, because you thought that, living eco-friendly and not eating animals was the way that really we should be living. And it was kind of your ethical stance. And I thought that was an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was the idea. The first idea, like I said before, when I came into vegetarianism, it was for environmental reasons, and providing a food that was lower on the food chain was my main goal at first, because really in 1980 was PETA was the first animal rights group that started, and they didn't start till 1980. So, and there was an internet showing how animals were treated. So it was a really big secret back then, about the ethical reasons behind vegetarianism and veganism. So it was mostly an environmental thing, but it was the mission, I mean, and that's an important thing, I think, in any business, is to have this mission that's beyond just making money. I mean, you need to make money to live, sure, but the mission kept me going when the money wasn't there, and I think that that's one of the key things. It just keeps you in business, and those were very happy years. Just seeing my little tempeh child growing bit by bit, and not making a lot of money, but I did towards the end of that. I did start feeling like a failure just because of the lack of money, and I was like looking for a way out. I started to write a book on tree houses that I thought would be a bestseller, and everybody thought it was a great idea, but there was somebody else that was writing a book on tree houses that was a little bit ahead of me, and it already had a publisher, and I was going around filming these tree houses, and people were like, "Oh yeah, there was somebody here yesterday and he was doing the same thing. He's writing a book." I'm like, "Oh no." And anyways, it didn't work out. So I went back to work into the tempeh mines, and then, just a little bit later, voila, here was Tofurky.
And sorry and not sorry that your treehouse book didn't work out.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
kind of happy it didn't. It's sometimes that way in life, things that don't work out, it's for the better that they didn't.
and now Tofurky is so revered by many because that is, especially in the beginning, that was what sustained them. And over the years, your products have gotten more variety and things have changed. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a life-changing event, Tofurky. And it's sold in, over 25,000 or something stores all over the world now. And it's been a joy too, just kind of helping to pioneer and grow plant-based foods, and to see where we are now and to compare where we were in 1980. It's phenomenal, really, to see the growth. And it's a lot to do with you and your listeners, and the people that have made the choice to eat a more compassionate and sustainable way of life. So hats off to you, Nancy, and to all of your listeners, I would say.
Yeah, and I want to say that it's also a good transitional. They're good transitional products for people who want to change from being carnivores and flesh eaters to a more healthier diet.
Yeah,
So that
agree.
helps.
And it does help, because we get a lot of calls. People are saying, like, my doctor says if I don't change my diet and stop eating so much meat, I'm going to have a heart attack and could die. And they're like, it's a long way from, eating like meat into just tofu or plant-based. So we're happy to make that change. And I don't know how long your transitional period is, but I still eat these transitional foods, and I'm, 43 years into the business of it, and 50 years into making it to be. I think this is the 50th year of transitioning. And so I'm slow, I'm a slow learner, so I might be different that way. But yeah, they're great foods for transitioning. Sure.
No, for sure. I'm not saying, transition and then stop. I'm just saying that
No,
I do a class, Cooking with Compassion class, once a month at Natural Grocers to help people transition. And so I introduced them to different products. And of course, I introduced them to everything that's out there that's plant-based. And this Thanksgiving, with the help of PETA, actually, I gave away some of your Tofurky roasts and hams. And just a quick story. I was at the Portland Veg Fest, and even before I was vegan, I was never a ham fan, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a booth there, Tofurky booth, and they were sampling the ham. And I'm like, I passed by it 3 times because, like I said, I wasn't a fan of ham. I'm like, I'll just try it because I'm here. And boy, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I
I'm
am
a
too.
fan of the Tofurky ham, for sure.
Yeah, I love it too. That's a newer roast, and I love the little baste packet in there, that you put over a glaze and you stick it in the oven. And sometimes I cook what's called a Hasselback ham, where you slice it but not all the way through, and then you can put pear or apple in the little slices in between there, and then bake it, and you get the sweetness of the ham and the sweetness of the apple and the pear, and it's like, mwah.
Really? I'm going to try that. So
Yeah, there's a recipe on our website, tofurky.com, for Hasselback ham.
I think I'm even going to show that at my Cooking with Compassion class. That way people can see how they can, do it a little bit different. That sounds like a great.
Yeah, and you can never get enough, fruit and vegetable servings, right?
Right.
So any way you can get vegetables in people too is a plus. I like to, cook the Tofurky roasts with carrots and onions and potatoes on the side, just right in there with the roast. It's really a nice combo.
Yeah. And, and I also try to let people know sandwiches. You have the Tofurky slices, which I'm a fan of. And it's just so easy. And as a matter of fact, one of the people who I had met who had told me they never go vegan, 2 years later, I saw her. She said she went vegan, and I was telling her about the slices and everything, that you can do the sandwiches with the slices. And here in Albuquerque, we have beautiful mountains, the Sandias, and she went packing. She told her friends that she would bring the lunch. And of course, she doesn't want to ever label anything vegan because people have preconceived notions and don't give it a good shot. So she said that's what she did. She had Tofurky. She did Tofurky sandwiches for everybody, and everybody was saying, "Oh, this is so good! This is so good!" And after the event was over, she said those were Tofurky vegan slices, and so it was awesome.
Yeah, those slices of changed the company and just changed America, really, because they are so easy, and they're packed with protein. They have actually a little more protein than turkey does, the animal meat. So people that are driving across country and they're in what they call food deserts and can't find anything, they go into store and they get the Tofurky deli slices, and it's just been a lifesaver for many people. And there again, it's great to, what I like to do is put them with avocado and pickle and lettuce and tomato, so it's a really good way to get both protein and vegetable.
I like to do it like a Monterey, where you add a little jam on it, and you toast the bread. You put the Tofurky with the cheese, and then a little powdered sugar sprinkle on top.
That sounds amazing.
It's pretty good.
I want to come. If I come to the Veg Fest in New Mexico, I want you to make me one of those. Is that a deal?
It's a deal.
Great.
As a matter of fact, I'll cook for you while you're here.
Oh my gosh, you're going to do even better. It's going to be hard to refuse.
So now tell me a little bit. You just wrote a book.
Mm-hmm. I wrote a book called In Search of the Wild Tofurky, which goes through my life as a failed businessman and then more successful. It's my rags to better rags story. And about my 20-year or 40-year overnight success. It's a fun book. It's been a fun life to live, and it was a fun life to write about. So we try and keep things fun at Tofurky and lighthearted. That's important in life, to just enjoy the moment and have a good laugh every day. And we try not to take ourselves too seriously. So this is the generation that talks about my journey and all the people that told me, what, this is a bad idea that you're having. So, including my Aunt Rosie, but God rest her soul, and just how things worked out. So it's a quirky story.
It's awesome. I can't wait to read it. I'm going to get it because I think that that is a great story to read, especially, with all the situations that we spoke about, the treehouse, you did not take business in school. You just went and said, this is my idea. This is what we want to do. And you jumped at it.
Yeah. It's sort of the anti-business book.
So it's awesome. Now, I have two more questions, if you don't mind. One is, I know that pre-COVID, you were able to tour Tofurky. Is that still available, or is that not?
By special arrangement. People can write to info@Tofurky, and we can try it if they're coming through town or something. We can sometimes accommodate them, but can't go down to the floor because there's quality concerns about who can get in there and everything. But we love to have people, tour the place and come to beautiful Hood River. This is Hood River in the background right here, and our plant is right on the Columbia River. So it's awesome. A LEED platinum environmental plant with 400 solar panels on the roof, and a bocce court where we play bocce up on the roof, and it's got gardens on the roof. It's a pretty amazing plant, really.
Awesome. That's what I heard. That's why I wanted to ask you if that was still something that people could do.
Yeah.
And then do you have any last words for our viewers?
Well, I think that I would like to just say, keep being vegan and keep eating, a sustainable diet. I'm 71 now. When I look back at my diet change in 1972, I just think, man, that is one of the best things that I've ever done. And I think that, if you're a young person and you are vegan, stay vegan. If you're not vegan yet, sign up for veganuary.com. It's Veganuary right now. It's the end of Veganuary, but there's still time to sign up. And it's a great program where you can get recipes and encouragement on how to make this transition in your life that you will look back on, I guarantee it, when you're 71 and say, man, I'm really happy that I did that. So let's stop eating animals and eat a nice, compassionate, sustainable, delicious life with plants.
Awesome. And I hope to see you at the Veg Fest in Albuquerque.
I hope to see you there too. I'm sure we'll cross paths again, but that's great. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on another Vegan Pulse. Remember, check out our website, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Live vegan.